Welcome to the ESI Africa studio, coming to you from the African Utility Week. With me right now is Crescent Mushwana, who is from the CSIR. We're going to be talking about the potential of bioenergy. Welcome, Crescent, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Crescent, usually renewable energies, we talk about them a lot, and then the focus is always on solar and power, and bioenergy is overlooked. What is the potential of this in Africa, where the electrification rate is so low?
In my view, bioenergy has got great potential in sub-Saharan Africa. However, the one hurdle that always bioenergy had was to do the mapping of the energy resources on the ground. In South Africa, as a case in point, about 2 years ago, the Bioenergy Atlas for South Africa was produced. And the very first exercise that had to be done was to map up the bioenergy potential in terms of resources around the country. And that's the first step. And after that, then you can look at different technologies that you can utilize to produce electricity from bioenergy. So as a result, bioenergy seems to be lagging behind because there's no proper mapping of the resources in sub-Saharan Africa. But in South Africa, that exercise has been done recently. And once the resources are mapped, then you can be able to look at different technologies you can utilize to exploit the resources. I mean, although currently another thing, except for the resources, which makes bioenergy to lag behind, could be the costs around bioenergy and the costs around this production. Although the costs are high, my feeling is that it should have a space because it forms part of the renewable energy resources base that we have as a country. And when we utilize the technology that's appropriate for the technology to be part of the energy mix, then bioenergy definitely can play a role. So in the past, I know the focus in terms of energy resources has been to supply bulk power to the power system, where coal has been playing a role in the past. But if you look at bioenergy, because of the cost around it and the technology that's required to produce it, you might look at special times in terms of the time for supplying your demand, special times where your bioenergy can play a role. Just a simple example would be the current diesel gas generators which Eskom uses during peak hours. Eskom utilizes them maybe close to around 5% of the time in the year. So it's just during special times when we've got peak periods. So I would see bioenergy playing a similar role into the future, not necessarily supplying bulk power, what we'll call base load 24/7, but only being utilized at special times. So, but the hurdle, as I've said, has been the mapping of the resources. Also in South Africa, that has been done. Sub-Saharan Africa, I think a similar exercise can be done because we know there's a whole lot of waste that is being produced. And that waste just goes to dumping sites, and it's actually not sustainable. So bioenergy definitely can play a role in order to help us environmentally, produce electricity, but if the technology used is expensive, then we can look at special applications for that technology.
What kind of technologies would those be?
Technologies in this case, I'm looking at generators which are used to produce electricity from bioenergy. Yeah, so the generators that we'll be looking at what we'll call flexible generators, which are actually able to switch in and out as fast as possible, as and when they are required to operate. And then that's where the bioenergy can actually start playing a bigger role in the power system. So even within the Renewable Energy Procurement Program, which is run by Department of Energy, they do have programs for small generators, and we've had like a few bioenergy projects which have been funded under that program, but a whole lot more can be done. Yeah, but when we look at the energy mix into the future, for flexible generators, currently we have natural gas, which plays a role there. In the future, we might have batteries as well, which play a role there. And then bioenergy will actually play in that space. And of course, it will save Eskom in terms of the high prices that we're paying for the diesel to run their diesel generators. So that's the space where bioenergy can play a role. And not only in the electricity sector, now coming to think of it, also looking at the entire energy sector, looking at bioenergy maybe for jet fuels into the future. Those are the other uses that we can look at in terms of bioenergy. So there are a whole lot of other uses except for the electricity sector. But everything starts with the resources, knowing where the resources are, utilizing the correct technology to exploit them as well.
Thank you so much, Crescent. Those are very interesting views. I hope we get to see these actually come to life. Thank you for watching. I'm Babalwa Pungani, copy editor of ESI Africa, coming to you from the African Utility Week.